I am Harold Houston, and I'm your host today. And I'm joined with a very special guest who's worked on a combination of many things that we watched on TV and many movies. Some of his notorious accolades are Uncorked, Women of the Movement, Messiah, Bluff City Law, Nashville, the hit TV show, The Vampire Diary, and Hannah Montana, the movie. How was that, Darrell? Darrell Wilson.
How was that? Well, I mean, it's been my career. You just kind of, it's one job after another, and it's great when, it's great. It's really great when someone, well, no, it's not. When it's great, so like all the stuff that you mentioned, and you'll see this as you go through your career, what you'll find is it's the people. It's cool that the project can become special. Like I've worked on a show that won an Academy Award. And
What show was that?
Crash.
Crash.
And I've worked on I've worked on shows that like people know the name of, Nashville or whatever.
Right. Uncorked.
So I mean, right. So people know that stuff, but really you'll see as you go along in your career, we remember shows by how good the crew was, how good the people
Very
were.
true.
Because we spend a lot of time together, right?
They become like your family. I know it's so cliche, but they truly do.
Truly do.
You hang around them more than your family. You want to hurt some of them some days, but you don't. You laugh, cry together.
Hopefully you want to hug them more than hurt them, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, that's the thing, right? You don't, and it's always fascinating to have like experiences, be on the same show with people or whatever, and it's what they remember versus what you remember, because it's like I have guys and they remember stuff and I'm like I don't remember that.
It's a bit of a blur.
I don't remember that at all. Yeah, exactly. Very much so. Sorry.
It's all good.
So yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I feel incredibly fortunate. Come September, it'll be 34 years I've been doing this.
Really?
Yep. And
Wow.
and I was a kid who grew up in Nashville. Didn't have any connections to this business, and here I am. Just and it was just just looking for one thing after another. I grew up in Nashville.
Okay. Yep. I forgot to mention you're from Nashville.
Yeah, I grew up in Nashville. Moved here. Went to college here. Of course, it was Memphis State when I went there. I went to what is now the University of Memphis, and was very fortunate in that there were large projects here about the time that I got out of college, which is 1989.
Okay.
And landed on a film that was originally called Looters and then became Trespass.
Okay.
I think that was the first really big show I did, and then of course, oh my goodness, what's his name? John Grisham.
Okay.
Some of his books became movie, and at the time, several of them were set in Memphis. So it was actually funny. I'd moved away in 1992. I moved back to Nashville because there were larger projects that were here, but then if you weren't working on a movie or something like that, there just wasn't enough work. So in 1992, I moved back to Nashville because there's more day work, there's more commercial work, more music videos,
Right.
in and amongst a few, like movie of the weeks
And
and
there are more
whatnot.
celebrities in Nashville, right?
Probably. That's not that's not what I based it on.
Okay.
It was just the fact that there was it, day by day
Right.
there was more work. But actually, and then got a call and came back and did the firm, and that was enough. I went back home and I told my wife at the time, we're going to buy a house. And she looked at me and she was like, I'm not ready to buy a house. I was like, well, we're going to buy a house.
Right.
So yeah, just fortunate enough. So that was like 92, 93, and just steady course. In the fall of 2000, some friends of mine were working on an independent feature that was in and around Oxford.
Okay.
And the grips that were on that, bunch of really nice guys, bunch of guys I still stay in touch with today. They're all out of Atlanta. They were about to go and do Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Wow.
Which they weren't telling me to come with them, but they were saying how busy it was going to be in Los Angeles, and I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to know if I could measure up,
Right.
if I could play in the big leagues.
Which you do now.
Well, which I'm fortunate enough to do now, I guess. But yeah, I had always wondered. I was fortunate enough, the payroll accountant on that little show, she was still going to be here for like another 2 months. I was like, can I stay, can I work something out? Can I stay at your place? I'll pay you, whatever.
Right.
So I secured some housing for a month. And basically I told myself if I could get half my days in the Hollywood Grip local, if I could get half my days, I'd come back.
Okay.
Incredibly fortunate. I had, what was it? I definitely had more than half my days, and I had a job to come back. So you need 30 days.
So what are these days?
So you need 30 days in California. Once you work 30 days in California, you're deemed to join the local.
Okay, cool.
Which you're working
the union, right?
That you're working with, yes.
Okay, cool.
And I got all of my 30 days in 45 days, which is actually kind of crazy. Nobody really does that.
Why is that?
Well, so the circumstance that allowed me to do that was the fact that at that time, the end of 2000 into 2001, there was a great fear in Los Angeles that there was going to be a SAG strike in motion pictures, on the motion picture side. So at that time, SAG and AFTRA still weren't, they weren't merged. They were two different things. So generally when you talk about SAG, early 2000s, like 20 some odd years ago, it was about motion pictures primarily. So it was just crazy, stupid busy. I had some friends that did that were doing like 2 to 3 shows, just like you'd finish one, you go to the next one, you finish one, you go to the next one.
Wow.
Because everybody was afraid that the actors were going to go on strike, and then we wouldn't be able to make movies.
Right.
So which the subsequent comedy there is the fact that a lot of those movies never got released because they were really bad because they all got rushed.
Oh man!
But there were plenty of them that were. I can remember one night I was working on a show, and we were doing a night scene, and we were just outside. We were up north, I think, of Los Angeles, and somebody came over the radio and said there is not a qualified grip. There's not a qualified dolly grip available in Los Angeles. It was kind of funny.
It was that busy.
It was that busy.
Wow.
It was that busy. And then.
Oh, what is a dolly grip, Darrell?
Well, so you have, in our business, you have something that's called a camera dolly. There's several different types, but not to belabor the point, we have a camera dolly. The camera is mounted to the dolly, which allows it to roll around, go up and down, for ease of placement, and to potentially create moving shots.
Right.
Okay. So hopefully that's a general enough.
So when you watch TV at any given point in time, and the camera's moving, it's more than likely half of the time a dolly shot. Maybe.
Yeah. It's probably half the time.
And
that's reasonable.
To describe a dolly, it is metal and it weighs about.
Well, okay. So an interesting fact that you might be fascinated with about dollies
Okay.
is the fact that they all the machine came from being a bomb loader.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you ever see the early, so there's these dollies called Elemac dollies.
Okay.
Or cricket dolly, which might be a type of Elemac. But anyway, they're Elemac, but they're four wheels. If you've ever seen a Panther dolly,
Yeah, I've seen one on TV.
okay, it's got that one post in the center.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's what an Elemac looked like, a little rougher around the edges, but that's what an Elemac dolly looked like. Well, that's basically
the dolly we have today.
Well, basically in World War II, they had bombs,
Mm-hmm.
and they had this thing that they would roll them around on, and bombs are heavy.
Yeah.
And they had a crank, and the crank would lift the bomb up so you could attach it to the plane. And from that, like post-war, from that they were like, hey, we got this thing, and we can put the dolly, we can put the camera on there. And
that was genius. Wow, that did blow my mind. And how much does the dolly cost?
Fisher dollies, Chapman dollies. Well, actually, I have a fascinating. One of the earliest times that I went out to Los Angeles before I actually even went out there to work,
Mm-hmm.
I had a trip to go to J.L. Fisher.
Oh, wow.
And we were looking at the shop and just it was just kind of cool. We were out there to pick up some stuff for one of the vendors in Nashville, and I can't even remember what we were picking up or anything like that, but it was certainly dolly related. But in the lobby, there was a dolly. Now that seems okay. Well, that makes sense. It had just come back from North Carolina, and it was demolished.
It was torn up.
It was demolished. So what had happened? It was on a commercial or something. I'm almost certain it was a commercial
Mm-hmm.
in North Carolina. At the end of the night, they had a PA. Yeah, they had a PA. They had a PA. It was going to return the dolly the next day to the vendor that was there that they got it from,
Right.
probably from Charlotte. But they didn't tie it off. It didn't get tied off. I'm not going to blame the PA or anything like that.
Right.
Of course, it was a
Not
long.
this time.
Well, no, I don't know, so I'm not going to blame anybody. I've never heard that. I don't remember that being told in the story, but the PA who was given the task to return it the next day, so it got loaded, it didn't get strapped off.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately for the PA who was driving, well, unfortunately first, they fell asleep.
Mm.
Fortunately, the dolly was on the passenger side, but they ran off the road, and when the truck stopped, the dolly went through the cab, out of the cab, and hit a tree, and it just demolished the front of it. Now,
Wow.
to get to your point, how much one cost, the owner, Jimmy Fisher, what I was told, the reason why it was there is Mr. Fisher said, leave it there and let everybody see what it looks like to destroy $250,000.
Wow. $250,000.
Yeah, say for a Fisher dollar, for a Fisher
Right.
10, so one of the large ones. I mean, it could be a little bit more now. Some of them are a little bit more sophisticated now, like some of the Chapmans. Some of the Chapmans that are being built now, like actually maybe even the Pee-wees, but the Hustler 5, the Hybrid 5, the Pee-wee 5, I think, they all now have like a battery pack on them, and you never have to charge them. You never have to bring a stinger to it.
I see you guys charging it from time to time.
Right.
Why do you have to charge
Well,
it?
those are the old ones, so it has hydraulics in it.
Mhm.
So it's just charging the system. So you boom up, and when you boom the dolly up, there's a reservoir of hydraulic fluid,
Mhm.
and so there's a small electric motor, a pump in there that pushes the hydraulic fluid into the system, so it will raise the arm. And then when you lower the arm, it all feeds it right back into the reservoir. But that pump needs needs its electric charge, because it'll only do like a full. If you did 8, 9 full lifts or something like that with the weight of the camera and the head and stuff like that, it drains the system.
It's a recharge.
So basically, yeah. So that's why every once in a while you'll see them plug it in.
Right.
But yeah, no, they're $250,000, stuff like that.
Wow.
Because they're all handmade, top to bottom. They're all handmade.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Wow. But back to your point
Yeah,
about there was not a certified dolly fisher.
Oh
in
yeah,
Los Angeles.
well, yeah. There was yeah, that was just a thing. I guess somebody was looking for somebody. Yeah, I don't know. It could have been a couple of people just talking. Somebody talking that was on another job or something like that. And they're like, oh yeah, we were looking for a dolly grip and we heard there's no more guys available. But yeah, no, at the time there were. It was kind of weird to hear, and I wasn't. Here I was. I maybe had my 30 days at that point, but still. But I don't remember. I don't remember if it was. I don't remember if I had joined by that time, but it was somewhere around there.
And you're the president of the union, right?
I am the president of the local here in Tennessee. Yes.
Okay, cool. Now, what does that mean in a sense?
Well, it's a figurehead position, really. You just kind of help wherever. Really, the two people who run the local. Because we still have a very small local, and like Atlanta, there's like 5,000 people in the local there. But we're talking grips, electrics, props, set dressers, a lot of departments, which is the same thing here in Tennessee and northern Mississippi. They've just had more work for the last 20 years.
Right.
Hopefully that's going to change for us. Well, hopefully the change began last year, because at one time when Young Rock started, there were eight projects of various and different sizes here in the state. That's never happened. It's never happened before.
Really?
Ever. No. So we're hoping to have that and maybe even surpass that this year because of some incentives that were passed a couple years ago.
That's good to hear. Now, you are a key grip, right?
I am a key grip. I generally refer to myself as a grip. Well,
Okay.
I do so just because it's, I would still grip for somebody. I would push a dolly. I'd be a best boy. I was the best boy on Women of the Movement.
Really?
I was, yeah.
Wow.
I was the rigging best boy on Women of the Movement. But yes, I'm fortunate at my age and in my place in my career, I am a key grip.
So what is a key grip for the people that don't know?
Well, a key grip is basically the head of the department, and basically it's the manager.
Okay. I like to use the Target example. So.
Well, but sadly, our business is far more corporate than people want to admit. When I started 30 some odd years ago, it was still a little Wild West. But actually the thing that I probably am not happy with over the course of my career is the corporatization of our business. But that's what happens when multinational corporations buy the studios, the people who make the movies and all that stuff. They want, they're gonna, Sony is gonna make. So Sony bought Columbia.
Okay.
So Sony, well, we don't care about what you did. We're going to run it like Sony.
Right.
So that's just, and probably the thing that I hate the worst is the fact that if you prove to be efficient and cost effective, yet you can look over there and you'll see somebody who's like throwing money out of the window. The department's just like hemorrhaging money or spending money, and nobody seems to care. But they always walk over to you and go, "Could you do that cheaper?" Which is very cool. Which is painfully corporate.
Right.
But anyway, key grip, head of the department. I've talked with veterans in Los Angeles, and I tend to agree with them that the key grip So there's the key grip, there's the best boy, dolly grip, and then you have company grips. Depending upon the budget, how many. You could have 1, you could have 5, but depending upon the budget. So, the key grip, basically the manager interfaces with, the ADs and the director of photography about what's going to happen, certainly on the day, but probably over the course of a week. If it's like our show, which shoots 5 days for one episode, or it could be a show like Nashville where we were shooting 7 to 8 days an episode, or Vampire Diaries, we were shooting 7 to 8 days. So you would have, or then there's a movie where you're going to work for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and you'll have gone on a scout previous, and then you've logistically been a part of laying out, like what type of equipment you need, whether it's stuff you're going to have, with you constantly every day, or like special gear, like an aerial lift or a crane or something like that. But basically, yeah, it's management. You of course, you don't really get to hire anybody. You recommend people to be hired, because the UPM actually, on paper, or in practice, the UPM is the person who hires everyone. Okay. Because it's like, some people get mad at you because they didn't get hired or whatever. It's like, well,
but it's not your choice.
I didn't hire. No, I can recommend people, but I don't actually hire them. But it's kind of a gray area. But anyway, but it's management, and then you have a best boy, which is somewhat of a clerk, a mid-management. They're basically there for logistics, manpower, and equipment. So it's like I'll have the conversation with the cameraman about what they may need. So like a certain crane. And then I will tell the best boy, and then the best boy will go, okay, so we need this kind of crane. Yes. So they'll talk to production, because the key grip is basically runs the set for the grip department. So the best boy will just make sure that the gear that's needed will be there in a timely, on time. Right. When on the day when you need it. A dolly grip. A dolly grip works basically with a camera operator and the director of photography to do any sort of movement that's needed or support the camera. Because it's like one of our our C camera has no dolly, but we still have a dolly grip to support them. Whether it's helping them with the sticks or getting them boxes and a slider, or a hi-hat, helping them with a hi-hat or anything like that. So it's camera support.
Or a car rig, right?
Car rigs are generally, depending upon the budget, like our show, that's going to be something that the rigging grips do.
Okay.
If it's like a small show or a tier 1 show or something like that, then the first unit, the main unit grips, would deal with the car rigs, and that would be kind of the key grip.
So a tier film is?
Tiers are just certain budgets.
Okay.
And please, I could look it up, but I don't know the specific. But it's like, so we'll just pick numbers, and I know they're off. But let's just say a tier. So there's a micro budget or what's referred to as a super low budget film, or people in the business now refer to them as tier 0. Okay. So let's say that's $500,000. Okay. Somewhere in that ballpark. And then you've got a tier 1. Let's say that's 5 to 7.5. I'm probably low, but 5 to 7.5 million, for a tier 1. Then you've got a tier 2. So let's say that's 7.5 to 12. Okay. Again, just kind of making up, just to give a ballpark idea. And then a tier 3 would be, like 13 to maybe 20 or 25 million or whatever. And then anything above that would be in our area, it's what's called an area standards agreement. And that agreement actually covers most of the country.
Okay.
You have the Hollywood Basic Agreement, which is for all of Los Angeles. There's the New York Majors contract. But here in the South, so that would be Atlanta, the Carolinas, New Orleans, Louisiana, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico,
Okay.
Seattle, and Portland, the Pacific Northwest. So a lot of the middle of the country is under the Area Standards Agreement. And that's basically your major films, your television, things of that nature, streaming series.
Your multi-million-dollar shows.
Well, they're all potentially once you get past tier one, they're all pretty much multi-million-dollar. But it's just the larger stuff. The stuff that everybody will definitely see. When you get tier 3, you'll probably see. Tier 2, you might see. Tier 1 is probably an independent film, so there could be you might see it, you might not see it. I'm not saying that you can get out there, but as you know, it potentially didn't have enough backing to get out in front of a lot of people.
Right.
So. What's
your favorite to work on in tiers?
Crew, we talk about stuff like that, and I can remember talking about it in Los Angeles. If I could work on a show that had like a $30 million to $35 million budget,
mm-hmm.
I'd be thrilled, because generally speaking, they have just enough money to do what they need to do. They can't hire an actor who's like, crazy, they're really popular and people love them and everything like that, but they're difficult to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't, but they have enough money to do, you need, if you need to get 300 extras or do this or do that or whatever, they have enough money. So it's just, it creates a nice atmosphere, and that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where when people who work in the business remember the projects they work on, it's the people and it's the atmosphere, because you want to be able to come to work and have a nice atmosphere to work in with not everybody's going to be the nicest person, whatever. Well, that's life. But the majority of people there are great. You want to be able to collaborate, which basically just means someone's going to allow you to do your job and not try to tell you how to do your job,
mm-hmm.
Which happens at both the really low level and the really highest level.
mm-hmm.
And that comes from not knowing and too much ego. But yeah, if you could work somewhere in the middle, TV shows, streaming or broadcast, yeah, because they have enough money. You're not coming to work going like, we don't have, we can't get X, we can't get Y, we don't have enough people. You don't have enough people in your crew to do what needs to be done, so everybody's working 3 times as hard instead of just working and being able to do your job. So yeah, somewhere in there. I've worked on a few like 6-figure shows,
mm-hmm.
and they actually become kind of cold because there's so much money. And there's a lot of demand.